Hi, friends. Welcome to episode 2 of Stoked to Have Ya. And I am Amy. And I'm also stoked to have you. So, episode 2 it's going to be about how some bright sides aren't obvious, love and loss, and what grief looks like. It can be different for everybody. I very much think that our life experiences are what carve us. I mean, that's proven, in many cases, but I try very hard not to judge someone's reaction to love or loss, based on my own, because it's typically when we're like judging someone, it's coming from our own experiences rather than theirs. And so I really love questioning people in these experiences, because what challenges you to believe what you believe? For myself, in the past few years, pretty much since 2023, I've experienced a lot of loss. So in one weekend, I lost the love of my life, which was, and I know how this sounds, but it was my cat. I had him from age 18 for 13 years. We grew up together. He was my best friend. I mean, you don't realize you do realize, hopefully, that when you have a pet, how much they mean to you and how much they're a part of your life. And, towards the end of his, it was my entire life revolved around him, and how could I be there for him? Because truthfully, he was there for me the whole time. I'd come home from a breakup or a bad day, and I had this creature to come home to. I mean, I remember one of the first times I ever cried in front of my cat, and he attacked me. His name's Oscar. And he attacked me because of the sounds that I was making. Like, I could tell he was like, what is this? And why are you making these sounds? But over the years, like, we had grown up together, and I remember being able to hold him and like cry into him and be like, and him just be right there. Like, he always, if I was having a bad day, I think he knew, because he'd always come and lay with me. Just the sweetest. He loved a good belly rub. He was also like a big dude. So like, I would aggressively pet him because he was so big and he loved it, that like going to pet other cats, I would fold him and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Just a little side note. But no, having an animal, it's like you always have someone to come home to. And so, I live this life, with meeting people and partners coming in and out of life. But here's this constant, and it's my cat. We've moved to different apartments together. Like, we've had adventures. How cool is that? And so he was easily the love of my life. Like, having a bond with an animal like that is unreal and so cool. And I hope whoever is listening to this, I hope you get to experience this kind of love, because it's awesome. It's so awesome. And so, but in this weekend, this is Father's Day weekend of 2023. That Friday, I had to put Oscar down, and it was the most beautiful day. And I wanted it to be that way. Oof, I'm going to try not to cry. I wanted it to be that way because, well, one, he deserved it. I didn't want him getting so sick that I had to put him down at a vet. I wanted him he wasn't well. He looked better than he actually was. But I wanted to make sure that he went out in a very peaceful, loving way. So the guy that I was seeing at the time, we had a slow morning. I just laid with him in bed, which was our favorite thing to do. And went to, like, we did a little photo shoot, which he hated, but I needed it. He got to eat some of his favorite foods. And then we had a wonderful woman, Erin, come to the house. And, we had our last goodbyes, a lot of cries. And I made him. So back in high school, I used to do sculpting. And so I ended up making a cardboard, like a pretty casket for him, I guess, because I decided I wanted to give him back to the earth. I didn't want to cremate him because I've cremated other animals, that I've had, and like growing up, and they sit. And he was such an energy that I've wanted to, I don't know, put that back in the earth, give back to the earth in a way I could. And also I just know him. He wouldn't have cared, Even by the end, he was definitely like a grumpy guy, but he was great. So I ended up making this little casket for him, and writing his name on it. And so I remember that, we gave the first injection, which is like a sedative, and he curled up into at first he kind of panicked, and then he curled up into my arms, and that's where he laid, and that's where he took his last breath. And it was very sad, but very beautiful. And like to be able to experience that and like be with him in that moment was very special. And you don't know what to expect. And obviously, I mean, I was very torn up, and I cried for a good hour holding him and just sniffing him and smelling like all of the smells, I just tried to huff him for as long as I could, and just, yeah, held him, and my partner at the time too. And then we put him in his little casket and drove him to my partner's family's house and buried him. And we all took turns digging a hole, had a beer, and it was beautiful. The spot was beautiful. It was just the perfect send off for the perfect guy. So it was, well, albeit very incredibly sad, it was the best decision I made because he was so sick and he was just stressed all the time. But that was a very hard day for me. And then 2 days later, my cousin that I donated my kidney to passed away during a surgery. And the surgery was not related to kidney at all. And it was expected, I think. Unexpected because, well, it was like a routine surgery that she was going in for, or it was, well, maybe not routine, but she had a broken bone that they were working on. And her daughter, my cousin, she had a feeling, she told me later, that she was going to pass, which is wild. It's wild how we know these things, or like intuitively pick up on them. And this was on Father's Day, very unfortunately, in the day before her birthday, which that's the thing about loss is you find certain your humor changes, because I was like, really couldn't have, like, in my head, I'm like, really, when, the day before, like, wild. Obviously no control in that, but like your brain will like try and find the funny in some things because it's like, this is so sad. Like, this is so sad. I don't want to focus on that. I need to find the funny. So that day was, we're spending time with my partner and his family and just having a great time. And then I get a call from my dad, and to hear your own dad cry it's just heartbreaking. Also, like, men cry. That's not a problem. It should never be a problem. I just want to say that. But to hear your dad cry, it's like, and they were so close. They were like siblings, even though they were niece and or she was his niece. They were almost the same age. Um, big families. Am I right? And so that was devastating, obviously. And it was just like this. We knew she had been sick because over the last few months, her health was at a decline. They didn't really know why. And so the last time I had seen her, I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, like, you're whittling away. But her spirits were still high, at least in front of me. But yeah. And when you have two big losses in one weekend, like, I think I entered a state of numbness. But it was also like, it's beautiful, the people that show up for you. It's beautiful, like, how you start to then look back and appreciate things. Like, I can look back at my life with Oscar and go, oh, I loved you every day. And I told you I loved you every day. And I made sure you felt loved because I wanted you to feel loved. So all of my efforts were towards that. And then same with Liz. I'm like, oh, I made sure that every time I talked to you, I told you I loved you. And every time we were together, I was present. And, not a day goes by that I ever, like, I would do it again. Like, the whole process, it was wild, and then, but it's also realizing, like, oh, a part of me died that day. I will say, when I did decide that I was going to donate my kidney, it was no longer my kidney. Like, the moment I was like, you can have this, it was no longer mine. And I do believe that. And then, but then there's also the physical aspect of it, which is weird. I can't explain it unless you've experienced it, truthfully. Like, and so to have that happen, I was like, oh, and I have no one to relate to on this. So in a way, it's like I felt isolated because I was like, yes, there's loss. And so Liz was my godmother. She was my cousin. She was a very, like, I would say a maternal figure, in the form of, like, she was a woman I very much looked up to. And then it was like all of that gone, but then also she was my recipient. And so while you can talk to people and they're like, I've also lost a cousin, or I've also lost, and then, but I didn't have anybody to be like, but she, like, we were so connected in this way. And then you're like, oh, and then she's just gone. And then for a while I struggled with the idea of, like, again, I wouldn't have changed a thing, because truthfully, it's like, yeah, she would, who knows if she'd have been here for as long if she was on just dialysis and never received a kidney. And truthfully, probably not. She probably wouldn't have. So she got 6.5 years out of my kidney and out of, and longer of life. And yeah, you just don't know. But, and I would have never changed anything. Even even if I knew the outcome, I wouldn't have changed it. But it's still like, I struggled with my identity. That's it. I was like, am I still a donor? Like, am I still a donor even though my recipient is gone? I almost felt like a fraud. And I'm sure if you're listening to this and you're like, that's not how that works. Yes, I get that. But that's not how my brain worked. So I struggled with that. And for a while, I didn't talk to anybody. My partner at the time realized that that wasn't helping me. And we had also been having issues. And so it was like this compounding stress. And then eventually got back into therapy. Thank God. And I found a great therapist. It did take me like 2 or 3 people to find the right one. But if you're ever thinking about getting into therapy, do it. Just do it. Find that person. It's worth it. Because when you click with your therapist and you're like, oh, and having someone to call you out on your bullshit is so important. And, it can't always be a friend. It can't. And it shouldn't be all on your friends, but definitely recommend it. So with loss, there's, it's very heavy. Obviously, it's very sad, but it also, it changes your humor, but it changes your chemistry. I mean, it changes how I view life. I value life, I think, a little more. I value my friends more, my family more, everyone in my life. And I love talking about them. I think one of the best ways to keep the people that we lose in our life alive is by talking about them. And that, every story you tell, it's like it's keeping them here. It keeps you present. It brings you back to a moment too of like, I look back at photos of both of them, Liz and Oscar, and I'm just like, oh wow. Like I can watch a video of Oscar and feel like a sense of calm. And I just love that. I'm like, oh, we just, I can still smell him, like my cousin, I'm like, oh, I can still hear her voice. Like, yeah. And it's very special. And then I understand, again, I think this is based on my experience in life. I try to find the positive because it's not like I don't want to, it's not like I want to focus on the negative, because it's easy to focus on the negative. I think I've always strived to go for the hard thing. And that's why I like long distance running. And it's focusing on the hard thing, which is seeing the positivity. And I also, side note with long distance running is something I learned with it that I carry through life is when you are thinking negatively, typically it's because you have one of your basic needs not being met. And whether that's sleep, you need food, you need XYZ, like I carry that throughout life. And so like throughout the day, if I'm thinking negatively and I'm like, oh, I wish this and I'm not good enough. And I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do I need right now? Like, do I need attention? Do I need a snack? Do I need a nap? And I can usually pinpoint what I need. And then there you go. All of a sudden, oh, I'm thinking a little clearer. And hey, maybe that problem wasn't as big as I thought it was. And again, these are my experiences that affect how I think now. And I really like the idea of focusing on what I have and what I have had, and what I've learned from my experiences, and especially with people. It's also coming to terms with like, this is a part of life. And as I'm getting older, it's going to become more common. And so I have to choose, how do I want to handle this when it comes up? So, in the last year, I've had several losses as well. Um, I've had friends who've experienced deep loss, and it's how can you show up? Because what a gift to show up for a friend in a time of need. I mean, truthfully, an opportunity to really like be there for someone is such a gift. Obviously, the sad thing is very sad, and it just sucks that it's a part of life, but it's like, here's this sucky thing. every yin has a yang. You're probably going to hear me say this many times, but it's true. And it's like, um, if your friends or yourself, like you experience this dark, terrible thing, and then it's like, but what light can come out of that? And it is as I get older, I'm realizing like, oh, these losses are gonna, you know, the longer you know someone, the deeper the cut. Um, and so, I had lost a grandparent this year, and that was, you know, it's a wild thing because I'm like, I tell a friend, and this is a very interesting way of thinking about it. But a lot of my friends were like, oh my God, you still have a grandparent? And I'm like, and it does kind of, and like, while that's, it's, I don't think it's a bad reaction. I think, but it made me think like, oh my God, how lucky. I'm, what am I, 34, and I still have a grandparent. Like, that is lucky, because a lot of people lose. I mean, how many times were you in grammar school and someone's out because they lost a grandparent? Like, I am lucky. And I got to hear so many stories from him. And, I still have one grandparent left. And I'm like, wow, like, and she's my best friend and she can never die. But, yeah, how wonderful. Like, yeah, it's, life is very precious. And I guess that's all I'm trying to say here is life is wonderful. And it sucks that we do have to lose people, but we do have to lose people. And it is an opportunity to, oh, while they're here, take every opportunity you have to show the people you love that you love them. Tell them, especially as we get older, it's like life gets busier. I don't get to see people as frequently, but I can call them. And that's something I'm working on myself is being more present in people's lives. And even if it's a 10-minute phone call, you know, take the opportunity. So yeah, being positive. It's a choice, and seeing how, dark something, taking something dark, and how can you bring it back to light? I guess I don't know. Now I'm babbling. Well, thank you guys for listening. I was stoked to have you. Um, Go kiss somebody. Go hug somebody. It's a good day to have a good day. I'll see you guys next time in the next episode. Thanks for listening.